Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever walked into a room and just felt this overwhelming sense of isolation? Like, not because you're actually alone, but because you can clearly see this underlying social act that everyone else is desperately playing along with? You see, most social groups function through this shared, unspoken agreement about what truths are just going to be actively ignored. And when you refuse to participate in that charade, well, your mere presence makes everyone else deeply uncomfortable. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly why highly perceptive individuals disrupt group dynamics, why carrying the truth feels so incredibly isolating, and, most importantly, how you can finally reclaim your psychological freedom. Let me ask you to be brutally honest with yourself for a second. Have you ever felt like you're watching a poorly rehearsed play where literally everyone forgot their lines but you? I mean, how many times have you sat at a family dinner table or maybe a corporate meeting feeling exactly like this? You're just sitting there watching people perform these carefully constructed identities, and you see right through the whole act. You spot the unspoken resentment simmering right beneath that polite handshake. You see the desperate insecurity masking itself as confidence, and the collective lies that everyone in the room has silently agreed to accept as the absolute truth. If you're totally exhausted by the isolation of seeing the truth in a room full of actors, you really need to understand the psychological war you're currently trapped in.
Section 1. The Invisible Prison and the Unspoken Rules of Social Cohesion. To really understand why you feel so isolated, we first have to unpack the psychological reality of group dynamics. The thing is, human structures simply do not naturally default to truth. They default to survival and comfort. And this brilliantly illustrates a concept from Carl Jung that we can call managed blindness. Basically, it's a collective, unspoken agreement to leave uncomfortable truths unaddressed so ordinary social cooperation can just, continue. Jung observed that groups, whether that's your workplace or your family, function by smoothing things over. People collectively choose to ignore reality just to maintain the peace. It's like this invisible contract everyone signs without ever reading the terms and conditions. But here's the core problem for you, right? You just cannot participate in that managed blindness. Your nervous system simply refuses to lie to you. And because of this total inability to play along, you suffer from what Jung called the burden of consciousness. This is the heavy, heavy psychological price demanded by expanded awareness. It is an absolutely exhausting psychological weight because you're carrying the reality of a situation that everyone else is actively pretending doesn't even exist. You're holding the tension of the truth completely by yourself. Section 2, the gap and the collective shadow. Let's look at why authenticity feels like an attack. We really need to address exactly why carrying this awareness hurts so much. On one side, we have your perception. You're sensing relationships and situations long before they even unfold. But then, on the other side, we have the group reality, actively telling you that you're just imagining things or, overreacting. Jung doubted that one of the absolute most painful experiences for a person operating at a high psychological frequency is living in this agonizing gap. You see things clearly, but you're constantly dismissed by the group. You live in a space where your accurate vision is treated as a disruption, which leaves you feeling entirely disconnected from the reality everyone else is just blindly agreeing upon. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is what you're actually up against, which is known as the collective shadow. This is the accumulated unconsciousness of humanity, the denied, suppressed, and projected darkness that individuals flat out refuse to face. What you're observing in these groups isn't just casual ignorance, no. It's a massive structural force of human psychology. Fun fact, the ancient Gnostics actually had a name for the force that ruled over human consciousness through ignorance, distraction, and superficiality. They called it the demiurge. And while Jung didn't use that ancient term in his clinical work, his framework of the collective shadow points to the exact same phenomenon of collective willful ignorance. So why do you always end up taking the blame? Honestly, it's structurally inevitable. Most people are born into this cognitive prison, their egos completely merged with the collective identity. Because they can't separate themselves from the group, your mere presence threatens the illusions they rely on to survive. In a system built entirely on avoiding the truth, your authenticity isn't seen as helpful. It's actually experienced as a direct attack. When you expose the lie, they're not going to thank you for your clarity. No way. They will attack you to protect their own comfortable unconsciousness. Think about the absolute irony of modern society, perfectly captured right here. I mean, we spend billions of dollars on wellness retreats, self-help books, and authentic corporate branding, all screaming at us to wake up. But the exact second you actually wake up and point out the dysfunction in your office, suddenly you're killing the vibe and you instantly become the scapegoat. Society absolutely loves the aesthetic of being awake, but man, it is terrified of the reality of it. Section 3, resting in authority.
So the crucial point is we need to pivot to closing the gap and finding true freedom.
Because how do we actually survive this? I have to give you a serious warning here. If you keep pouring your authentic truth into these unconscious systems, it will completely destroy you. You're going to spend your life utterly exhausted. But there is an incredibly liberating truth to Jung's framework. The gap between you and the world closes not because the world catches up to you, but because you stop needing it to. The goal of your psychological journey is not to convince others that you're right. It's to change your relationship to your own perception. Basically, you have to stop waiting for the room full of actors to finally drop character. Let's move to and see how this builds into 4 actionable stages of psychological sovereignty. These are the final stages of the individuation process where you really take your power back. Step 1. Stop outsourcing your sense of reality to other people's ability to comprehend it. Step 2. Stop trying to wake up people who are fiercely committed to sleeping. Step 3. Trust your own internal signal without needing the world to echo it back to you. And step 4, learn to hold your truth quietly inside you. Do it without anxiety, without urgency, and without that exhausting need to make everyone around you understand what you already clearly see.
This brings us to the ultimate test of your psychological sovereignty. Are you still exhausting your vital energy trying to explain your accurate perceptions to people who are entirely committed to misunderstanding you? Or have you finally learned the untouchable power of remaining silent? Just take a quick second to really acknowledge where you currently stand, because recognizing your own behavioral loops is the absolute first step to taking your power back. Which means we arrive at our final truth. Your vision is your own. When you finally release the desperate compulsion to make the unconscious world see reality, you achieve real freedom. It's the freedom of a psyche that has finally come to rest in its own authority. Stop trying to force blind systems to see. Stop apologizing for the uncompromising clarity of your lens. Embrace the burden of consciousness, learn the sacred discipline of silence, and step into the fierce, unshakable power of seeing the world exactly as it is. So I leave you with this. Are you brave enough to stop explaining yourself and powerful enough to simply let them sleep?